The 26th of April 2043. Server Beta. Los Digiangeles. Achoo. Matthew sneezed loudly and all over poor Wanyamon. After the last match they were taken back to the waiting room where both could be treated for the extreme performance they had just participated in. The healers had just got through with both of them and served Wanyamon a bunch of data packets to munch on to return to his rookie form. However, till then he was absolutely adorable and now, snotted over. This is an indignity, the little Digimon stated as it munched on another packet, the data filling in all the expelled data from the fight. Buck Rogers was discovered missing after their match, but an investigation was said to be held after the tournament. Matthew was a bit nervous about it, but then again the guy did wrap a belt around his neck. For some people the tournament was important, but Matthew never imagined someone would want to strangle people over a spot in the guard team. Hopefully Black War Grey Mon didn't turn Buck into data though. Suddenly he heard a cute tiny bark and looked over to see Kitty and her Gato Mons picking up Wanyamon, who did not look happy. He's adorable. Kitty was near squealing as she pet and squeezed the adorable pet Digimon. The Gato Mons did not look all that envious of Wanyamon either. I remember when Gato Mon and Black Gato Mon were small like this. Nyaro Mon, oh how I miss them like that. You know we don't. It wasn't really the cat's meow. The three started to discuss as Wanyamon seemed to be filling with rage. Matthew swears he could see his fur turning purple from his fury. Hurriedly moving to grab his partner before he got himself deleted, he gave Kitty an apologetic smile as he pulled Wanyamon free of her grasp. A wave of curses and yelling were muffled by a data packet being shoved in his mouth. Sorry, he needs to keep eating, you know? Oh, and good job back there. He was pulling that all out of his butt, but Kitty didn't seem to mind. She seemed to have changed clothes since the last match, a hooded jacket and a t-shirt of a pretty popular band in Silversmith. Her ponytail was also down to let her hair be free. She really seemed familiar looking like that. Yeah, we are the best at what we do. You actually handled things really well yourself. Though I wonder why you haven't used your black Agumon. Come on, spill. She had leaned in as she spoke and ended by poking Matthew in the cheek. He's picky about his fights. We only just met when I signed up for the tournament. Oh, was it an accidental? That happens a lot in this town. You could say that. Great. His mess up with Gaomon isn't completely uncommon. Well, your cutie patootie seems to be able to handle himself. Too bad. If you had your other partner you might actually stand a chance at winning. I promised semi-finals and we made it there, didn't we? Wanyamon was done biting its tongue and spoke up, growling at Kitty. We did better than we had any right to, so give us that. The little fighter growled, but Matthew clapped a hand over his big mouth. Sorry about him. No, he's right. You guys haven't done bad, boot. Kitty gestured to the last two in the room, that Edwin guy, who didn't seem all that concerned or change. His bear Mon and Agumon napping at his feet like pets. And then a blue-haired girl who was covered in shadowy clothing that made her features hard to discern. Her Digimon didn't look to be out, however the D-terminal told him she had a Wormmon and a Tobu Catmon. Weirdly, both Digimon had a weird X symbol next to both names. Her name was registered as Drazel. She must have a bit of an ego if she wanted to go by the name of the Digimon's god. You see what I mean, right? Going to be fighting one of them next. Kitty had a point. Edwin's Digimentals meant he didn't need to wait for Digivolution to champion level. He'd always be able to go straight to that stage without waiting. And that other girl, he hadn't even noticed her, but she couldn't have made it this far off pure luck. Her Tobu Catman was a champion-level puppet Digimon capable of high-speed flight. So no matter what, she'd go in with a similar advantage to Kitty, a starting champion level. Both of them must be really good tamers then if they got their Digimon to such a high power before joining the tournament. You know anything about them? Matthew just had to ask. One just oozed mystery and he really had no clue on anybody really. Well, Edwin is a pretty typical rich tamer. I've seen him around before, is really into Digimon hunting from what I've seen. Probably where he got his Digimon, and if that's the case I wouldn't doubt that they are powerful. Kitty lets him know. She must really get around if she knew all that from just seeing someone. She must be rich too. And that girl? Haven't met her before, but since she has X-antibody Digimon, I'd assume she's not someone you'd want to know. What's wrong with X-antibody Digimon? They are special and rare programs some Digimon get that makes them stronger and near immune to deletion. Some people consider them unholy. That's possible? I guess. Never actually seen one. Suddenly, as of knowing she was being discussed, the girl turned her head towards them both, causing both to flinch and pretend to be fawning over Wanyuman, who was taking a nice nap before being rudely awoken. It wasn't much longer till the matches were shown. They'd be happening simultaneously in the arena, meaning the battles would be happening around each other. This meant theoretically you could attack the other Digimon in preparation for the next round. The battles would be Edwin versus Matthew and Kitty versus Drazel. It's mandatory to defeat your opponent's Digimon in order to be allowed to leave the arena. With Gaomon only now getting back to full strength, they didn't have much time to strategize. They'll be gunning for us. As soon as I get to Gaomon status, you'll need to use our unique so we can try and end things. Gaomon explained. That was his idea, and it was fair, but something nagged at him. Are you sure we shouldn't go straight to champion with it? It ensures we are strong at first, but it's the same as the Digimentals. I'll be trapped at that power. It made sense, but still they feel cornered. What else could they do? Looking down, Matthew felt disappointed they wouldn't be going forward anymore. However, looking down into the shadows underneath the terminal, he got an idea. It wouldn't hurt, hopefully. Before the matches began, Matthew went into a corner and whispered to his shadow. Black War Greymon? Can I please ask for your help? Matthew was ready to offer up an arm or a leg for the assistance of a metal Greymon. It wouldn't be difficult for a Mega level or an Ultimate level. No tamer, I do not acknowledge you as strong enough. The shadows whispered back with a hiss, the venom in the Digimon's voice sending shivers down Matthew's spine. Listen, I don't need you at your best. If you became Metal Greymon, you could easily defeat my foes, and I'll give you all the best meats in town. Expensive meats in this city were worth more than his rent, so he hoped Black War Greymon would understand how badly he is needed, even as a Greymon or Black Agumon. Bother me like this again and we will see what you look like inside out. The Digimon promised its tamer before going silent. The anger in its voice absolutely terrifying, and if Matthew wasn't upset he'd be thankful he was alive. All four of the tamers had to walk upon the relay, the advanced teleporter scattering them across the arena. Their battlefield was a mess of trees and mountains, with the only open area being a trench or valley at the very bottom, an odd addition to this battlefield. A maze of trails and paths were also around, though they noticeably lacked cover. Looking down to Gaomon, he sighed. Okay, so what are you thinking, pal? We should try and keep away from our opponents until I make it to Gaomon. Gaomon reached up and patted Matthew's arm before pointing to the distance. Surrounded by trees was the brilliant light of Digivolution. Quickly the two ducked down as flying out of the trees was a monstrous Digimon. It looked vaguely like a Tyrannomon but unhealthily skinny, with large white leather wings. Its body had scars all over, some of which seemed to leak some form of acid. Covering it was white tentacle-like veins that seemed to pump acids up to the beast's head. In the monster's tongue looked like a blue orb that flapped in the wind. The Digi-terminal situated upon Matthew's eye, similar to a monocle, called the monster, Poison Draw-mon, a darkness armor Digimon. We have to take that thing down? In a hushed tone, Matthew asked Gaomon as they crawled back behind cover upon their mountain top. His blue-furred companion had to think as he watched the dragonfly around the battlefield spewing a putrid green acid down upon the forest, the unlucky trees caught in its path dissolving. What cards do we have options for? I can't believe I'm saying this, but I might need a defense card. Gaomon peeked over Matthew's shoulder, Matthew holding up his hand, and the two looked at the cards floating above each finger. They had the Gargamon's Blaster's card again, Defense Matrix, Lion Sword, Lightning Blade. Thankfully cards weren't one-time use, cause the Blaster's card could come in handy if their opponent could fly. Gaomon reached over and took the Digi-terminal off of Matthew so he could see the effects of the cards himself, then pointed out Lion Sword and Lightning Blade. If we can get an ambush, maybe these two together could do significant damage. Chop the head off the beast. Then we could use Matrix for barriers as we run. Galmon tossed the terminal back to Matthew. Then they heard a cough from behind them, turning around and they were surrounded by Kitty's Gatomon. The black one looked ready to pounce on Matthew himself. "Hey guys," Kitty commented as she marched up the trail towards them, just waving as the wind made her hair flow to the side. "Well, it was a good run, man. I promised semi-finals and I got you there. Guys, I'm not going to take you out. I want you to win." Kitty chuckled and only glanced towards the direction of Poison Dramon. He had gone the opposite way from them and seemed to be in combat with a blurry green Digimon nearly the size of Poison Dramon. "Why would you want us to win? We are the weakest ones left, Matthew." "She wants to guarantee a win." "Well, the win is guaranteed already. I just don't want my partners to get too beat up. I want a clean sweep." Kitty would offer Matthew help getting up, though her attention seemed to be up in the stands. Following her gaze, it was over near Captain Blakewell of Silversmith's Soultalon Guard team. The whole tournament was dedicated to his rivals the Guard team Fireheart, so it was weird she was focused on her future competition. "Well, thanks anyway. Think we could help you against your opponent too? I appreciate it, but we should have it covered. Right, girls?" The two Gatomon cheered before the sound of galloping woke them from this dull silence. Bounding up Matthew's mountain was a mooseman. Emblazoned upon its armor was the symbol of hope. "This guy has 2 digi-eggs? He must have a hole in his pocket," Kitty remarked and gestures to her Gatomon to attack it, the two felines dashing to intercept it. One going straight for it head-on while the other scales down the mountain to attack it from a blind spot. Digi-eggs? That thing hatched from a digi-egg? Matthew was confused as he nodded to Gaomon to join the battle as well, the rookie quickly catching up with the two cats, greeting the Moose-mon with a rolling upper to the side. Well, no, Digi-egg is another name for Digimentals or Digi-armor. They are expensive but can allow a Digimon to digivolve to the next level even under the most extreme situations. Kitty quickly explained as she was simultaneously checking where the other Digimon was in her hand before playing a card. In the battle, the black Gatomon was suddenly covered in metal armor and thrusted a red lance into the Moose-mon's side. "Enough! Saint Roar!" The Moose-mon stomped a hoof that seemed to spontaneously cause an avalanche across the mountains before letting out the most terrifying of roars Matthew has ever heard from a Digimon. Sludge! Kitty quickly pushed Matthew to the side as the ground started to crumble out from under them. She pointed over his shoulder back towards the Poison Dramon and it was gunning for them, the green Digimon following from a distance. "Looks like it's going to get interesting," Matthew stated to Kitty, giving her a small smile as he got up and turned towards the battle which had started to go in favor of the Moose-mon. Moose-mon are known as the deities of the mountains and thus it had home field advantage over their team. "We should fall back towards the trees. If we get into a straight fight things are going to get really messy." Kitty agreed with Matthew's plan and both called their Digimon back, Kitty using an odd red whip of energy to get their attention with a crack. Even Galmon was focused on her until he heard Matthew and started to run. Matthew noted he would need to ask about it as the group ran with the angered Moose-mon stopped at the peak to watch them run. As Black Gatomon's armor dissolved, they entered the most thick part of the trees. From above they'd be hard to spot at least. Though the sound of wings approaching and the roar of Moose-mon's hooves indicated that it wouldn't be long till they'd be back in a fight. "Galmon, we are going to do that thing you talked about. You think you can do it from here?" Matthew had to rely on his partner. They were close to digivolving, but if they could get the extra damage off and then digivolve to redraw, they'd be looking much better. "Roger, Roger." Galmon saluted and scaled a tree, Leomon's sword forming in his mouth after Matthew activated the Lion Sword card. "Girls, plan 4. Black, I want you to go see if you can peel that Stingmon out of the air. White, you get a rematch with that Moose-mon. show him what training does. Kitty didn't let Matthew shine as the only bossy tamer, squinting towards the horizon before identifying her opponent's Digimon. She activated another 2 cards. One turned black Gatomon into shadows while white Gatomon got a golden aura. Both Digimon without another word let out their own war cries and left for their respective battles. Breathing deeply, Matthew hoped things worked out. The Stingmon was the first Digimon Matthew saw, it falling through a tree as a tiny black Digimon was manhandling it. The Stingmon looked odd, its chitin body seemed metallic and it had red crystals on its body. Its signature stingers completely made out of those crystals. However, its metallic body didn't seem to help it with black Gatomon's choke hold. Matthew couldn't help but feel a bit nauseous watching it, but thankfully he'd quickly be distracted as the Moose-mon ran at the Stingmon yelling out, "Hornblade!" The Moose-mon's horns shining like metal as it tried to impale both Digimon, the Stingmon barely holding it back before white Gatomon showed up in its golden aura and tackled the Moose-mon away from black. Lightning Paw. White slammed both paws into the Moose-mon with fury and large rifts of the Digimon's data exploding out from the powerful attacks. However, falling out of the trees and locking eyes with White was Tobukatmon, a Digimon Matthew had forgotten was in the battle. Its eyes glowing white while it said, "Flying Phoenix," causing Gatomon to be paralyzed long enough for Moose-mon's Punisher attack to kick White like a ball into a tree. This isn't look great. Kitty was starting to reach for her unique card floating over her thumb when she was cut off. Lightning Lion's Blade. Gaomon finally came through and there was a loud shriek when data started to rain from the sky. Poison Draw Mon crash landing with a major gash in its wing. Gaomon jumping down and attempting to bury the lion sword into it when its body is suddenly turned into a hard blue ice. Silly tricks don't help, you know, Edwin called to Matthew as he walked out from behind his dragon. Activating another card, the Moose-mon ran over looking much more refreshed. A healing card was used. I recommend surrendering before my superior Digimon break your runt in 2. Matthew suddenly really didn't like this guy. Gaomon hearing runt and looking very angry as he slammed the lion sword into the Poison Draw Mon's ice hide hard enough to shatter the weapon and crack the Digimon's body. A whistling noise emitted from the Digivice as Gaomon's Digivolution finally greets them. Glowing brightly, Gaomon started to Digivolve when Moose-mon kicked him in the chest back towards Matthew. "Runt stays runt," the Moose-mon cockily said as Gaomon's glow faded. "Poison Draw Mon end it," Edwin told the disgusting plague dragon, it rearing its ugly head and filling its mouth with poison before firing it out in an attack called Mercy Ending. Kitty was torn between angry and terrified at how things suddenly got bad. Maybe allying with the weakest guy in the tournament was a bad idea. Maybe she should have used her ace in the hole already. Her girls were busy having a cat fight with Drazel's overgrown Beetleborg and Flying Cat. They wouldn't be able to step in to save Matthew's partner. Maybe his lazy black Agumon would step in, but it's doubted. It's over, or so she thought. Matthew wasn't out of cards yet. Whatever he used caused the Poison Draw Mon's attack to suddenly splatter against some kind of invisible wall. Okay, Gaomon, now or never. Poison Draw Mon, no mercy. End him now. Gaomon glowed golden once more and digivolved to the champion level, proudly exclaiming his new name, Gaomon. But that's not all. Matthew. Now, another card was then used, Matthew's unique card. Gaomon was covered in a purple light and his body morphed unnaturally, the long red scarf molding around its humanoid body and resting among this new Digimon's suit. The head of it was blue like Gaomon, but he didn't really look the same. Asta Mon. Hasta la vista, sludge for brains. Like an action hero, this new Digimon shot out a one-liner before lifting up an old-fashioned Tommy gun. Hellfire exchange. Penance plague. Asta Mon stared down the green plague fires that approached him and opened fire, not once flinching as the bullets cut through the flames and hit the Poison Draw Mon hard. It screaming out before being absorbed into Edwin's Digivice. Wow. Kitty honestly couldn't think of any other word, and as much as she hates losing focus on her girls, she had to marvel at Matthew's ultimate level Digimon. Moose Mon. Charge him. A card was used, however it didn't seem to help as the Moose Mon got pinned against two invisible barriers and then boxed in. Asta Mon flying into the air before lowering the gun down and laying waste to Moose Mon. Edwin's Digimon defeated. The crowd was deafening completely. No. This isn't fair. Edwin started to have a fit, and as Matthew exchanged words with him, Kitty turned her focus back on her own team. White and Black had gotten back up and were working together as they trained. They had trained for years like this. White was to take the focus while Black hit from obscurity. Together they were unbeatable for any chump who lacked basic teamwork between Digimon. However, Drazel taught her ex-antibody Digimon well. The Tobu Catmon at first would seem useless, however its paralyzing gaze allowed Stingmon to adjust to their attacks and fight off both at once. They needed to tip the scales, and it was either using her ace in the hole and completely upstage Astamon, or she could let Black Gatomon finish things. Options. Real problem is where Drazel is. If she could use cards right now, it'd be better to use the ace. Reaching for it, she heard the crowd boom with booing. Looking up at the sky, it said Drazel surrendered. That was convenient. How was that, Dad?